The global food crisis is not a distant threat. It is unfolding in real time, affecting millions of people across continents. From the vast plains of sub-Saharan Africa to the fertile valleys of South Asia, food insecurity is becoming one of the most defining challenges of our era. This crisis is not the result of a single event or misstep, but rather a complex storm of interlinked issues, including climate change, geopolitical conflict, economic inequality, supply chain disruptions, and unsustainable agricultural practices. In this speech, we will explore these forces and consider the solutions that offer a glimmer of hope. Historically, food production and supply have always been vulnerable to external pressures. In the early 20th century, the Dust Bowl in the United States wiped out millions of acres of farmland, leading to mass hunger and migration. In the 1940s, famine swept through parts of Asia and Europe during and after World War II. In modern times, however, the crisis is no longer confined to isolated events. It is now systemic. Climate change is playing a destructive role by altering rainfall patterns, increasing the frequency of droughts, and triggering floods that destroy crops. Warmer temperatures are leading to the spread of pests and diseases in regions previously unaffected, putting further strain on food production systems. In many parts of Africa and South Asia, farmers rely on predictable monsoon seasons to grow staple crops like rice and wheat. But these patterns have become increasingly erratic. Some seasons bring too much rain, flooding fields and washing away seeds. Others bring none at all, causing seeds to wither and die in the cracked soil. This unpredictability has made subsistence farming a gamble, with devastating consequences for communities that live harvest to harvest. Meanwhile, extreme weather events such as hurricanes, wildfires, and heat waves have battered agricultural infrastructure, even in developed nations, disrupting supply chains and causing price surges that ripple across the global market. The war in Ukraine further exposed the fragility of the global food system. Ukraine and Russia together accounted for nearly 30% of the world's wheat exports. When the war began, shipping routes closed, ports were blockaded, and fields became battle zones. The consequences were immediate and far-reaching. Countries dependent on these grain exports, particularly in the Middle East and North Africa, faced skyrocketing food prices and shortages. For many, bread became unaffordable almost overnight. In places like Lebanon, where inflation and political instability were already issues, this external shock pushed food insecurity to unprecedented levels. Supply chain disruptions extend far beyond war zones. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated just how dependent we are on global trade networks for the most basic necessities. Lockdowns and labor shortages slowed or stopped the flow of goods, including seeds, fertilizers, and machinery. Ports became congested, containers were stuck, and prices rose steeply. Smallholder farmers, especially in poorer regions, couldn't afford the inputs needed to grow food. Without investment, without infrastructure, and without support, the global agricultural system began to teeter. Economic inequality also drives the crisis deeper. In many countries, food is available but not affordable. Urbanization and rising costs of living mean that even those with jobs struggle to pay for adequate nutrition. In the United States, one of the world's wealthiest nations, millions rely on food banks. In India, millions go hungry even as the nation exports tons of food abroad. This paradox of hunger amid plenty reveals a disturbing truth. Access to food is as much a political and economic issue as it is a logistical one. But while the causes of the global food crisis are daunting, there are solutions, and hope remains. Innovations in agricultural technology are helping farmers produce more with less. Drought-resistant seeds, precision irrigation systems, and climate-smart farming techniques are gaining traction. Governments and NGOs are investing in rural infrastructure to improve access to markets, training, and resources. Food waste reduction campaigns are growing in popularity, as nearly 1/3 of all food produced globally is never consumed. Reclaiming this wasted food could feed millions. There is also a renewed focus on local food systems. Community-supported agriculture, urban gardening, and decentralized food networks are empowering people to take control of their food supply. In places where climate change has made traditional farming difficult, hydroponic and vertical farming are emerging as alternatives. These innovations use less land and water and can be run year-round, even in harsh environments. Global cooperation is essential. Countries must work together to stabilize food supply chains, reduce trade barriers, and create safety nets for the most vulnerable. International bodies like the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization are calling for greater coordination and investment in sustainable agriculture. Philanthropic foundations and the private sector have a role to play too, by funding research and helping scale successful models. And most importantly, ordinary citizens can push for change through advocacy, responsible consumption, and support for fair food policies. The global food crisis may be one of the greatest tests of our time, but it is also an opportunity, a chance to rebuild a more just, sustainable, and resilient food system. One that doesn't leave people hungry while others waste, one that honors farmers as frontline heroes. One that treats food not as a commodity but as a human right. The road ahead is difficult, but the seeds of change have already been planted. What we do next will determine whether they grow into a harvest of hope or wither into a legacy of neglect.